The Nashville Predators return home from the 2024 NHL Draft in Vegas with 8 exciting prospects. On today's show, we'll review the picks and tell you why Barry Trotz's phone was blowing up with calls about Yaroslav Askarov.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast, and thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this Monday episode with a shout out to our Locked On Pred heads. Those are our everyday listeners who tune in each and every weekday to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us. We appreciate your support, and we love that we get to spend a little bit of your day with you. I'm Ann Kimmel. I am a writer with Penalty Box Radio, and my friends, I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Emma Lingen, and I am the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
On today's show, we are going to review the NHL Draft over the weekend that happened in Las Vegas and tell you just a little bit about those 8 new prospects the Predators have added into the fold. We're going to review those picks, and we're going to tell you just how badly Nashville wanted that player they selected with their first pick. Plus, news broke over the weekend. The Predators are going to be announcing a long-term deal with Juuse Saros today. We're going to tell you what we've heard about that deal, and we're going to explain why that news kept Barry Trotz on the phone a lot this weekend. Finally, free agency starts today. We're going to make our predictions for what may happen with the Predators. Before we dive into all that, want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As those playoffs wind down, the sports stop sportsing like we all want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. All right, Emma, so you were live and in person at the NHL Draft this weekend in Las Vegas. So want to kick off the episode by just getting your take on how was the atmosphere at the NHL Draft overall, and what was the experience like at the Sphere? Because it looked really cool from home.
It was kind of trippy, I'll be honest. It was very it definitely lived up to the hype. I'll say that. I think it was a little interesting. I feel like the experience for fans in attendance was probably much better than for those of us who were on the floor, because that venue, it's better if you sit farther back and it's set up for that. But, a lot of the time, and I was talking to Barry Trotz about this afterwards too, like we're sitting on the floor, but everything is projected inside the Sphere on the giant screen. So you're like, it feels like you're in the front row of a movie theater the entire time. So it's like at the end of the day, I'm like, man, my neck hurts. Like you're just kind of looking up at it. But I mean, for the fans, with the way the seating is set up there, and they have like speakers kind of embedded in the seating, so like the sound was way better for them. And I mean, it was definitely a cool experience. Also really enjoyed the trade alert signal they had.
Yeah,
it was a goal horn. I'm very glad I was warned about it beforehand, because in the warning I received, I'm just a very jumpy person, and so the warning I received, the person likened it to the Columbus Cannon. So
you got to know.
I was like, yeah, I need to know that this is coming, and it was quite loud. And like, if you see videos of it or see it on TV, I feel like it didn't do it justice. I mean, there were people at one point, like people at the New Jersey table, like falling out of their chairs. Like it was very loud. So
I loved it. Every time I heard it, I was like, ooh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And it was a lot of like, hey, we're going to trade this pick for this pick. And
yeah,
so the news was anticlimactic, but man, did they do something with that goal horn and the announcement of it.
Yes.
So yeah, it looked like a cool experience.
Yeah. No, it was a lot of fun. One thing I will say that was kind of interesting, to compare it to last year when the draft was in Nashville. And granted, it's different because Nashville, like most drafts, host it at their home arena. So it was, to me, it felt very clear that the Predators were the hosts of last year's draft, you would not have known that the Golden Knights were hosting the draft this year. It just didn't really feel like it. But I think that has more to do with the venue, like the fact
Yeah, that's true.
Their arena, like, I don't know. And I felt like the fan bases just kind of across the board were pretty well represented too. I think, it wasn't like overwhelmingly Vegas fans. A lot of Sharks fans because it's out west and they had the first pick. And yeah, I mean, it was cool. It was there were a lot of people there. They had a sellout the first night. I think a sellout for that venue is 14,000. And
wow.
So yeah, it was very cool. It definitely made me want to see a concert there at some point.
Maybe not you too, but
maybe not you too. Yeah. No, I'm looking, looking ahead. The Eagles are going to be there in November. So if the Preds want like a redo from last year,
that would be great.
Yeah. So
that's a good one. Yeah. There was one San Jose Sharks fan, and because you were there, you didn't get this experience, but for those of us that watched it on TV, I'm sure everybody listening knows what I'm talking about. But when San Jose got that first pick, there was clearly some San Jose Sharks fan who had taken advantage of the open carry / open container law in Las Vegas and was right next to a microphone and was just hooping and hollering. And eventually, of course, I think was relocated because all you could hear was this one potentially inebriated San Jose fan who was really excited about Macklin Celebrini. I could not hear him, but I did hear about this. And I'm like, you know what? I almost hope he wasn't drunk and that's just his personality. I would love to be just drunk on life like that. That's right. Drunk on hockey, baby. Drunk on hockey. Well, the Predators came home with 8 players out of their 9 picks. We're just going to review really quick who those picks were, just give you some quick overview about them. Later on this week, we're going to dive into more of their story. Of course, a lot of these young players are going to be here in Nashville at development camp. Emma and I will also be at development camp. So we're going to bring you more information and some stories from them throughout the week as well. But the first pick in the draft, this was really interesting. This was somebody that Barry Trotz and the team really, really wanted, Egor Surin. And for me, Emma, 17-year-old, so a little bit younger. This is a Russian player, played in the Russian Junior League, 6'1", 190 pounds. And I love that he seems to be a player who is a combination of what Barry Trotz said, and this may be my favorite Barry Trotz quote of all time, spit and grit, with a high skill set. Not going to see him. He's in under contract for a couple more years in Russia, but this was a really good pick.
Yeah, I think it was too. It was kind of a surprising pick. A lot of projections and a lot of scouting services had him going in the second round, kind of farther down. Again, it's always a little bit of a risk with Russian prospects in the last few years, right? Just because the opportunities to get to see them are not what they would be for the Canadian or American or even European, other European players. There just aren't as many opportunities to see them play with the various sanctions and whatnot. So, but the Predators were really confident in this guy, and they really liked him. And from everything I've read and heard about him, it just sounds exactly like he is tailor-made for an Andrew Brunette system, I think, which, has trickled down now into Milwaukee as well under Carl Taylor. But like, he works his butt off, and there might be some areas, and again, he's 17 years old, like there's time, but there might be some areas where maybe the skill is not quite as finely tuned as it could be, like the technical skill isn't quite there, but man, he will give 110% and just work and work and work. And I think my favorite thing that he said, which I think a lot of people picked up on because I tweeted it, was he said, "I like make hit."
Come on now.
It was great.
Make hit.
I gotta give him credit too. Like, his English was good. He wanted to, so he had the Predators Russian scouts there to help translate for him, and they helped translate the questions, but he wanted to answer all the questions himself. Like he didn't go through the translator.
This strikes me as an identity pick is the best way I can describe it. This, like you said, this is a player whose style of play, personality, tenacity is sort of tailor-made for what Andrew Brunette, it's things Andrew Brunette talks about. He's talked about last season with other players, and these are things that are qualities that Igor has. This was a player, like you mentioned, not necessarily targeted to go where he did, but Nashville really wanted him. Barry Trotz talked about it after the first night, talked about how much Nashville wanted to get this pick. This is what he had to say.
He's got a really good mixture of, I want to say, hard skill. Our scouts were saying, a player that he plays like is maybe like a Sam Bennett for Florida. He's got a good motor, high skill set, driven kid, and competes really hard. So we're hoping that all those very important elements of a player's game are there, and you see it on the ice. So we're really happy with the pick. We were trying to move up a few times, and thank God he slipped through where we were able to get him.
You were trying to move up to get him?
Oh yeah, I was on the phone probably for about 5 or 6 picks in a row. I think you get to a point in the draft where you want this player, and it's worth giving up more assets to get the player. Fortunately, no one would take my gift, and we were able to get him right where we got him.
So Barry Trotz and the scouting team got the player that they really wanted, worked out well for them. Coming up, Emma and I are going to tell you about the rest of the picks that Nashville came away with from the 2024 NHL Draft. We're also going to talk about the news that leaked over the weekend, an announcement allegedly coming today about a long-term deal with Juuse Saros. We're going to talk about that coming up in just a minute. First, want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, love sports. I love them so much. I don't ever want the off season to come. But as the playoffs have wound down, we are here with fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There is something for everyone, new customers, old customers, every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, Emma, so the Predators got more than Igor in this 2024 draft. Their next pick was at number 55 overall. Teddy, tell me this name again. Stiga.
Teddy Stiga.
Teddy Stiga. He is from the U.S. National Development Team. He is a winger. He's headed to Boston College next year. And this is a guy that a lot of people were really high on too, but weren't sure where he was going to go in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it seemed like most places had him either going in the first round or very early in the second round. To me, this was a steal of a pick for Nashville, that he fell as low as he did. Now, people might ask, well, why did he fall as low as he did? Couple things. Number one, he's not the biggest guy. He's got maybe, a little disadvantage there in his size, but he also had been sort of inconsistent prior to this year. And but he just had a stellar performance at the World Juniors with Team USA. And he was, had kind of that clutch gene for,
Yes.
showing up when it really matters. And again, hard worker. And he's kind of been described as a guy who's a perfect complement to like an elite scorer. Like I said, that was the steal of the draft. I think that Nashville got a really good one there.
I love what you said about being clutch. Russ Cohen, he's co-host of the Locked On Flyers podcast, but he also very involved in prospects. And he messaged me after the Predators picked him and said, love this guy. And he said he is a clutch goal scorer. He is the kind of player the coach will want on the ice when the team is up a goal or down a goal. He's that guy. So comes with a glowing review. Like you said, maybe not the biggest guy, but a lot of upside to him. With the 77th pick, the Predators selected Viggo, not Mortensen, Gustafsson. He is a defender, 6'2", 194 pounds. Here is my favorite thing about this player right now. When asked whose game do you sort of compare yours to, he said Matthias Ekholm. And I said, welcome to Nashville.
Yes.
Come to my house for Thanksgiving. So
you said you are now my favorite.
You are now my favorite. I will take care of you. So yeah, Viggo Gustafsson, another guy that's younger. This is a younger prospect, but a great pick at 77. 87. This is a player a lot of people are pretty excited about. Miguel Marquez. What did you take away from this young player?
Yeah, he's one that's I think that he also kind of like Stiga, he had that potential to maybe go in the first round. Again, there, maybe some consistency issues with this play, but again, nothing to be too concerned about right now because of how young he is. And that those are things that can be coached and will come with time. And I think that he's explosive and he's fast and he's, he looks like a guy who could really make an impact, once he kind of hones that consistency.
Yep. Another WHL player that the Predators took with their next pick at 94th, Hiroki Goisek. He is a right winger. There's a lot of him to like. 6'3", 198 pounds, and really good at using all of that size. This one, he seems really personable. I'm excited to get to know him. He makes a great first impression.
He does. And one thing, if we're talking about on ice, that is probably his claim to fame right now. He's got a really deadly slap shot. So he, when you think of, a bigger guy kind of that can really just like let it loose like that, again, you want him to see and kind of develop his other skills a little bit more, but like that's a sneaky good weapon to have too.
99th pick, the Predators selected a goaltender, Jacob Malota, 6'1", 170 pounds. Won't have to listen to anybody talking about how he's small for his size if he makes it to the Nashville Predators net mining position. He's from Czechia. So a goaltender in the system, you got to like bringing another one in.
Yeah, he played this last season was his rookie season in the QMJHL. He played primarily as a backup goaltender, but like really impressed. I think he made, even as a backup, made the all rookie team. And, really it's interesting. I found him to be an interesting one because I feel like this is not something that you hear a ton about goalies, but it seemed like the skill or the asset that he has that everyone was really high on was his skating, which I think is so funny because normally you don't hear about that. But, specifically talking about his footwork, getting around the posts and things like that and being able to kind of block those weird angle shots. And it's like that's interesting. Like that's something I wouldn't have necessarily thought of. But I think that, that he has above average skating ability for a goaltender.
Yeah. And selected 99th, which, by the way, so is a guy we love, Juuse Saros. We're going to talk about him in a minute. The final two picks that the Predators made, Victor Noringer, a winger, Swedish, here for it, 6'3", 192 pounds. This is another really young draftee. He just kind of snuck in age-wise into this draft. And with their final pick, they chose a center, Erik Paulsson, 6'1", plays in the USHL as well. Anything jump out to you about those two players, Emma?
Well, Paulson's an interesting one. We were talking about the younger guys. He's an older guy.
Yes.
He's 20 years old, I think, or about to turn 20. I can't remember, but he's, like you mentioned, played in the USHL. He's committed to the University of Minnesota. And what's interesting to me about that is also where Matthew Wood, last year's first round pick, is going to be playing this year. He transferred from UConn. So I think it'll be pretty cool, pretty interesting maybe to see those two guys playing on the same team.
Well, coming up this week, we are going to tell you even more about these young players. We're going to hear from them at development camp. We're going to look into their statistics a little bit more and talk some more about what we hope to see them grow in as they get ready to join the Nashville Predators, hopefully in their future. Also this week, we're going to give you our reaction to whatever may happen starting today. Free agency kicks off. And look, if you are somebody who is wanting more conversation about the Nashville Predators now and throughout the season, we want to invite you to join our Locked On Predators Insider program via subtext. You're going to get exclusive content from Emma and I. We're going to give you some in-game analysis. We're going to give you immediate reaction to breaking news. And the best part of all, we're going to get to have some one-on-one conversations about all things Nashville Predators as well. So you can join the Locked On Predators Insider subtext program through the link in our bio and in the show notes. So check that out. All right, Emma, we're talking about, a goaltender picked at 99. Let's talk about the other goaltender picked at 99 who made his way to the Predators roster. Juuse Saros, word leaked this weekend. Saros signing what is rumored to be an 8-year, $7.74 million long-term contract.
7-4.
I mean, can I just tell you, I'm 100% here for that. Whoever negotiated that in, thank you. Yes. I'm here for the symbolism here. What is your initial reaction to the deal?
It is about dang time. That is my initial reaction, because now everyone can shut up with all the speculating. Because again, I know I've been saying this for weeks, but as long as he remained unsigned to an extension, he was going to be at the center of every single trade rumor, which again, I understand for like Barry Trotz, that's an effective bargaining tool. But for those of us more in the know, it does get a little old. It gets a little trying to just be like, all right, we're really talking about this again. He's not going anywhere, people. Right. No, I think it's good. I think a lot of people though are letting, I just seeing fan reactions and whatnot. People are having some feelings about the term being 8 years, given that he is 29 years old. But to that, I say a couple of things. Number one, if you thought that the Preds were going to get him for less than 8 years, like you're crazy. Right. Like that is just not
want to get him for 4 to 6 years. If I were Juuse Saros, I wouldn't sign that deal.
No. And the Predators knew that. They know the only way we're getting him is if we sign him, to this term, which I think, frankly, he's earned. And also, like, given all the projections for him being around, like what Hellebuck was, I think Hellebuck's 8.5, something like that. 8.5.
Yeah.
Granted, Hellebuck does have a Vezina trophy, but I still think people are upset about the term, being 8 years. The fact that they got it done for under $8 million a year is, you got to give Barry Trotz and the Predators a lot of credit for that. And you also have to give Juuse credit for that, because he really wanted to be here. He wanted to stay here. So he's like, I will take less than 8. And so I think that's good. But also I think people are just letting their recency bias kind of shape their opinions about this deal with like, oh, it's too much, too long, too much. He's okay. Again, to this I say, yes, statistically, he is coming off of his worst season in the NHL. I will not argue that. True. However, Juuse Saros at his worst,
take it home, girl,
finished 5th in the Vezina voting this year. 5th
in his worst season. Preach it.
Okay, so I'm just like, all right, if that's his worst, then like I'm feeling pretty good about that. I will take that gamble. And so, and then of course people are upset about Askarov, and he's the future. He was supposed to be the future. I just truly believe that anyone who is saying that Askarov is ready to come up and play in the NHL now has not watched him enough. Hey, you haven't watched him enough, because I think, like, yes, we see the flashes of brilliance, like with the skill that he has. I mean, that's undeniable, but he's not there. And I think it was really interesting what Barry Trotz said on the radio last week regarding Askarov. He said, look, you're ready when you're ready. And it's not when the media says that you're ready. And it's not when the fans say you're ready. It's not even when you say you're ready. It's when we say you're ready. And like, even Juuse Saros over marinated for a little bit in the AHL when they had Pekka, and that worked out pretty well. So people, I think there were just some kind of overreactions about like, oh, well, now that Saros is signed, they need to trade Askarov. Like, they need to get rid of him now while his value is highest. No, they don't. No, they don't. There is absolutely no rush to do that. I mean, he's still on another year of his ELC, so they don't have to trade him. I understand they don't want to let him walk in free agency, but he'll become a restricted free agent. They still have exclusive bargaining rights with him. And you know, there's still always, maybe you package him as part of a trade at the deadline next season. I don't know, but I'm just saying there are other options. People are looking at it as very black and white. Like, oh, we signed Saros, so we have to trade Askarov now.
Right.
No, you don't.
I agree with you 100% on what you're saying. I get the term makes people a little twitchy, but Juuse Saros would have gotten that term and a higher AAV anywhere else. So thank you very much, Juuse Saros, for wanting to be here. The other thing I will say when I look at that term is you have to remember Juuse Saros has not had any sort of major injury. Yes, he did miss the postseason. Was it 2 seasons ago? But that was an injury that is not a recurring. It's likely to happen again. It's going to hurt him long-term injury. He, you know, this is somebody who is very, very healthy.
I'm now going to need everyone to just knock on the closest wooden object you have now that Anne has just spoken this into the world. But yes, but you're right.
You know, so this is somebody who I think you may say, but you know, the age, he's going to be so, look, Juuse Saros has got a lot of good miles left on him. The other thing I will say too, for the people that were like, it's Askarov time, we needed to trade Saros. Juuse Saros gives you the best chance to win in 2 separate windows. There is a small window for Nashville becoming a more likely contender. I'm not willing to say that they're going to win the Stanley Cup, but I think, you know, depending on what happens today, you know, they could get closer. But that Ryan O'Reilly, you know, Roman Josi, Philip Forsberg kind of generation with Juuse Saros, that you stand a chance of becoming a better contending team with Juuse Saros in net, be, you know, more so than Yaroslav Askarov. And later, as this team transitions in 3 to 5 years, Juuse Saros is your better bet as you transition to the younger players. And I agree with you. This doesn't mean that Trotz has to trade Askarov, but I will say, according to Barry Trotz, it did mean that everybody, all those GMs, wanted to know if he would. And Barry Trotz's phone was blowing up with GMs calling about Askarov. And Trotz did not hear anything that made this worth his while. And friends, it doesn't have to. Doesn't have to.
And I'll say, you know, being present at the draft, that was the question I was getting the most from everyone else in the media. You know, they know I'm there for covering Nashville. They're like, oh, is Askarov getting traded tonight? And I said, and I truly believe this, not unless, like, well, specifically on the first night of the draft. Right. He's not getting traded tonight unless the return includes a pick in the top 7. Like, I guarantee you that's not happening. And by extension, that means it's not happening because no one with a top 7 pick is going to trade it. Like, especially tonight, it's not going to happen. So that was that. And then the next day, people, oh, do you think he's going to trade him? Again, the return would not have to be picks. You know, they don't want more picks. They want highly touted prospects and they want proven NHL talent. And so the only way that Askarov was getting traded on day 2 of the draft was if the return included any of those things. And as we saw, with a few exceptions, with, you know, Tampa Bay trading Sergachev and Tanner Jeannot and things like that. It was mostly picks getting traded for other picks. And that's not the kind of deal that Barry Trotz was looking to do for Askarov. And so, of course, he's, it's the responsible thing to do to listen, like, yes, I will listen to the offers, but we have the upper hand here. We don't need to offload this guy right now. So we're going to, just hear what the offers are.
My thing that I think we need to keep an eye on, and you said it, you really cannot over marinate a goaltender. That just doesn't hurt a goaltender's game, but Yaroslav Askarov may not feel that way. So it's going to be interesting to see his reaction and see what happens in the future with Nashville in net. But as of now, Juuse Saros is the long-term piece for the Predators. Emma, real quick before we wrap up, free agency kicking off today. Of course, we will be covering it all, so stick around with Locked On Preds. We're going to cover any sort of breaking news moves. What is the deal you are looking for or wondering if it could happen?
Well, we know how I feel about Chandler Stevenson and Brandon Montour on defense. He would be the one that I would like to see them go and get on the back end. I will be honest, though, I have come around to the idea of Steven Stamkos on the Predators. And I wrote about this for the Hockey News yesterday. And you know what? People, and rightly so, people kind of balk at his age. He is 34. He's going to be 35 this season. So I understand why that would give you pause, as it should. But I think this guy still came off an 81-point season with Tampa.
Come on.
He has captained them to 2 Stanley Cups. He is still an incredibly effective player that he can, that he was able to, he can drive offense. He can drive a power play. Like, he does all these things for a team that desperately needs more star power in the top 6.
Yes.
Like if Steven Stamkos is your 1C or your 2C, if you have your top 2 centers as Steven Stamkos and Ryan O'Reilly, come on. Like
100%. It changes what this team is capable of.
Yes. And I think, and the reason I've come around to it is because you talked about having kind of those 2 windows of being competitive. And I think about it, we're like, you know what? Yes. People oftentimes see the, signing these older players as blocking a spot for a younger player, which I think is short-sighted, because to me, if I look in Milwaukee right now, aside from the obvious, like Spencer Stastny, there really isn't anyone that I would rather have on this roster than Steven Stamkos right now.
Come on.
Because I think, and I'm not saying they'll never get there, but I'm saying like I'm not saying that they don't have any talent in the pipeline. I'm saying they have some really good talent in the pipeline. It's just not quite ready yet. It's still cooking, still marinating, still cooking. It'll be there, but it's just not there yet. And so bringing in a guy like Stamkos buys you time. It allows those players to continue developing into those kind of players. And then they come up and they learn from a guy like Stamkos. Like that to me is huge. And I think that it really does. Like I said, it kind of buys you time, but it also helps you stay competitive now, because you want to take advantage of, the Juuse Saroses, the Philip Forsbergs, the Roman Josis, who are all not getting any younger, and you want to utilize them, in their prime too. So I think that, to me, I have come around to it. I was admittedly one of the ones at first that was like, oh, 34, I don't know, but I've come around to it. Depending on what the deal is, I will have to see. I truly have no idea on that, because the only really comparable that we got was what he was reportedly offered by Tampa, but that was, you got to take that with a grain of salt, just because of hometown discount and all kinds of things like that. So
I'm with you. I have really come around to the Steven Stamkos. This is a guy who has had 7 seasons with 40 or more goals. What? The other thing I like about him, I think he is another great culture piece, as the Predators are kind of resetting, not just, young players in a roster, but resetting a culture. I also love that he is somebody who played last season at times with Nikita Kucherov, with Braden Point, who also at times played with a couple of relatively young guys, Brandon Hagel and Anthony Cirelli. And, I'm like, this is somebody who knows how to play with high-end talent veterans, but who also can do some really impressive things with young talent around him as well. So we're going to keep our eye on it. Nashville is rumored to be a team in on conversation with Stamkos. Of course, we will be following all of this as it happens today. So stick around with Locked On Predators. You can follow us on social media at LO_Predators. You can, of course, check out our videos on YouTube. We will have breaking news videos available as well whenever anything develops. In the meantime, Emma, where can everyone follow you and follow your work?
You can follow me on social media at Emma_Lingen, and you can follow my work online at The Hockey News, and give me Steven Stamkos centering a line with Luke Evangelista.
Oh my gosh.
Like, I get excited thinking about, see, my dog's excited. She's here. She's here for it.
Is here for this. Yes. So you can follow me on social media and K_Mama on Ice. You can find my work at penaltyboxradio.com. Again, stick around today with Locked On Predators. We are going to be following all the breaking news. We will be back tomorrow with an all new episode as well. So be sure you tune in then. Hope you guys have a great Monday. We'll see you.